These guys are not your average teenagers. They're real Karens who dared to face the law with their full chest. These are the stories of the most dangerous teens who thought they could outsmart the system, but were wrong. From hilarious mishaps to downright bizarre circumstances, these young offenders managed to find themselves in some serious hot water. You would not want to miss a single moment in their reactions to these crazy sentences. We'll be chuckling, gasping, and maybe even shaking our heads in disbelief as we uncover the wild antics and unforgettable punishments that these daring delinquents faced.
We start off with the story of the 19-year-old kid named Shondell Jackson and his buddy Derek Thomas. These two knuckleheads had a bright idea to go rob some poor sap. Well, things went sav real quick. They first set their sights on 21-year-old Nathan Potter, a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee who was just minding his own business walking home from a night out. But Shondell, being the clever criminal mastermind that he is, decided to take things up a notch. He pulled out a gun and fired it straight up, shooting poor Nathan. Nathan bled in the pool of his own blood till he died. Shondell and Derek were later arrested and charged with murder. Now, you'd think Shondell would have learned his lesson, but nope. When the jury came back and declared him guilty of killing Thomas, the guy had the audacity to turn around and start hurling insults at Nathan's family. But the real kicker is what happened next. When the judge sentenced Shondell to life in prison without parole, he lost his cool. The guy started freaking out, trying to get up from the table, and the cops had to tackle him to the ground and pepper spray him. Meanwhile, Nathan's poor family was just sitting there, clutching each other and crying their eyes out. And then, to top it all off, Shondell's family members started hurling insults at the Potters like they were the ones who did something wrong. I hate. Anyway, long story short, Shondell will be spending the rest of his days behind bars. And Derek, his partner in crime, got a measly 12 years. Guess the judge figured Shondell was the real troublemaker in this whole fiasco. The name Mackenzie Chilla has become synonymous with a terrifying tale of tragedy and recklessness on the streets of Strongville. Chilla, who was known by the chilling moniker Hell on Wheels, struck a devastating chain of events that would shake the community of Strongville to its core. On that fateful day, Chilla, behind the wheel of her unassuming Toyota Camry, crashed directly into the Petco building, instantly killing her boyfriend Dominic Russo and his friend Davin Flanagan. But this was no mere accident. The troubling details that emerged would paint a much darker picture. Investigators uncovered disturbing videos from Russo's phone revealing a relationship in turmoil, with Chilla verbally abusing and even threatening her boyfriend. Shockingly, she had even gone so far as to threaten to deliberately crash her car while driving with Russo, foreshadowing the tragedy to come. The crash itself seemed to be a calculated act, with Chilla choosing an opportune time and an unfamiliar route, suggesting a level of premeditation. And even in the aftermath, Chilla's actions were nothing short of chilling. She callously asked authorities to suspend her license for a decade, displaying a staggering disregard for the lives she had taken. During the trial, Chilla maintained her innocence, claiming to have no recollection of the events leading to the crash. But the prosecutors presented damning evidence, including celebratory TikTok videos Chilla had posted shortly after leaving the hospital, revealing a shocking detachment from her actions. In the end, the verdict was clear. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, in a scathing statement, described Chilla as literal hell on wheels, emphasizing that the deaths were not the result of reckless driving, but rather premeditated murder. The sentence was equally severe. Chilla was condemned to 2 concurrent terms of 15 years to life, a harsh but necessary consequence for the unspeakable tragedy she had unleashed.
In 2011, at the tender age of just 16, Nicholas Lindsay committed a heinous act. He murdered a police officer, David Crawford, in St. Petersburg, Florida. But what made this tragedy all the more unsettling was Nicholas's chilling demeanor during the proceedings that followed. As the courtroom listened in stunned silence, Nicholas Lindsay sat there with a grin on his face, an unnerving display that left the victim's daughter, Amanda, utterly devastated. Despite his young age, Nicholas was tried as an adult and sentenced to mandatory life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. But then, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of a landmark Supreme Court ruling in 2012. The court's decision in Miller v. Alabama and its companion case, Jackson v. Doss, held that such mandatory life sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional. This opened the door for Nicholas to receive a resentencing hearing, where the court was required to consider the mitigating factors of his youth, his troubled upbringing, his mental health struggles, and his potential for rehabilitation. The defense pleaded for a reduced sentence of 40 years, citing these extenuating circumstances. However, the judge was not swayed, recognizing the gravity of Nicholas's crime and the unrepentant nature of his actions. The judge renewed the life sentence, though with the caveat that he would be eligible for review after 25 years behind bars. Years later, in 2017, Nicholas's case was again revisited, and once more the court concluded that there was insufficient evidence of his rehabilitation to warrant a reduced sentence. At the age of 22, Nicholas Lindsay's life sentence was upheld, a stark reminder that the consequences of his actions would reverberate for decades to come. Back in 2007, Jennifer Mee's name first graced the headlines, not for any grand accomplishment, but for a rather peculiar affliction, uncontrollable hiccups. But in 2011, Jennifer's life took a dark, unexpected turn. She found herself embroiled in a tragic crime, charged with the murder of a woman named Shannon Griffin during a robbery attempt. The contrast between her initial fame as the Hiccup Girl and these grave criminal allegations must have been jarring, shocking the very public who had once followed her medical misadventures with such rapt attention. Rating is of the 20 most dangerous teens reacting to their sentences. Her defense team argued that Jennifer's diminished mental capacity at the time of the crime should be taken into consideration, but to no avail. The gavel came down, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a fate one might consider even crueler than a lifetime of hiccups. You have to wonder what could drive a person from the realm of quirky celebrity to the depths of such heinous acts. Was it the unbearable burden of her affliction, the constant scrutiny, the weight of her newfound notoriety? Or was there something else, some deeper darkness lurking within her psyche, waiting to emerge? A question that may forever remain unanswered.
Dance Wright. What on earth was going through this guy's head, standing in front of a court in Ann Arbor, Michigan with a grin on his face? And why is he there? Well, let's take a look at his background. Jordan C., a beloved senior at Pioneer High School and a star football player with dreams of attending Michigan University, had his life tragically cut short on that fateful day in October 2016. He was found dead from a single gunshot wound to the head. The whole community was in shock. How could such a bright and innocent young man meet such a gruesome end? The investigation led to the arrest of 3 teenage suspects, Dant Wright, Delano Gracie, and Jarvis Ellison. Fast forward to June 2017, and Dant Wright casually admitted to killing Jordan C. during a robbery gone wrong. No remorse, no regrets, just a casual confession. Throughout the trial, Dant continued to display a shocking lack of remorse. When it was his turn to address the court, Dant had the nerve to say, "I just want to tell you, I'll be home soon. I love my family." Thankfully, the judge wasn't having any of it. Dant's lawyer attempted to apologize on his behalf, blaming his actions on emotional challenges and suggesting that his smile might be a display of fear. Nice try, but no one was buying it. In the end, Judge Schwartz handed down a sentence of 23 to 50 years in prison for Dant's gruesome murder of Jordan C. It all started with this guy named Jeremy and his serious beef with his high school Spanish teacher, Noah Graber. She gave him a bad grade that he just couldn't let go of. So Jeremy teamed up with his buddy Willard, and they hatched this crazy plan to go after Graber. They grabbed a bat, like they're some kind of deranged baseball squad, and they start stalking Graber during her daily walks in the park. And then, wham, they brutalized the poor woman, beating her to death right there in the park. The cops got wind of it and launched a full-blown investigation. They worked overtime to gather evidence and built a case against Jeremy and Willard. When the trial rolled around, the prosecutors laid out all the evidence against these guys. The court saw how brutal the crime was and knew they've got to send a message. So there's Jeremy crying his eyes out in the courtroom, apologizing to Graber's family and the judge. Sean Showers weighed all sorts of factors: Jeremy's age, the fact that he didn't really grasp how serious it all was, his clean record, and the possibility that he could still be rehabilitated. In the end, the judge sentenced Jeremy to life in prison, but with a chance at parole after 25 years.